What's going on, guys? Marco here with 4 for 4, and I am bringing you my 5 Dynasty moves to make. The first move to make is really relevant because the day I'm recording this, Dalvin Cook was recently cut, and so the number one move to make in your Dynasty leagues is sell Alexander Mattison right now. Here's the reality. He is a mid-level player. Volume will be there, and that's great. But the reality is, for Dynasty, especially if you're not a contender, but even if you are a contender, you can probably get more than Alexander Mattison is going to be worth in 2023 right now if you were to trade him. People are going to be all in on him. His pass-catching volume is probably going to be decent, but they're more than likely going to add a veteran to this team, whether it be Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think that they're going to roll into the season with Alexander Mattison, Ty Chandler, Dwayne McBride. That's an option, but ultimately, even if they do that, I think all three of these guys will get work. If you can go and get any sort of young wide receiver for an Alexander Mattison right now, I'm selling. Recently, as of today, I went and looked, and you can go get a guy like Brandon Ayuk for Alexander Mattison and a 2024 second. I'm doing that right now. Brandon Ayuk has more value in 2023, and he has way more value beyond. I wouldn't be surprised if Alexander Mattison ends up being a handcuff once again as soon as 2024. So I am moving on from Alexander Mattison as soon as possible. The next move I've got to talk about, and we're keeping it with running back, is if you are a non-contending team, every premium running back in fantasy football that is not named Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, you should trade them. You should trade them right now. If you are not a contender, which means if you don't have a contending window in the next 2 years, you are trading all premium running backs not named Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. Here's some of the running backs I'm selling that are younger running backs that I think you can get more value for if you're not contending right now. Travis Etienne is one. Sure, he's taken a little bit of a hit with the addition of Tank Bigsby, and we know how Doug Peterson tends to utilize the backfield. I actually like Travis Etienne. If you're a contender, I'm probably buying Travis Etienne with some of the dip. But if you are not a contender, I am trading Travis Etienne right now. Obviously, the older guys, Austin Eckler's, Derrick Henry's, even the Nick Chubbs. I think Nick Chubb is one of those guys who has started to build hype. And if you can trade him in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you are going to capitalize on a ton of value. I saw in a league Nick Chubb and a 2024 second and a 2025 second go for Garrett Wilson. If you can make that trade in a Dynasty League, I am doing that right this instant. The next move I'm making is buy DK Metcalf right now. Buy him right now in all your Dynasty leagues. He's entering his age 26 season, and he is entering his alpha window as a wide receiver. He's got a top 10 wide receiver finish under his belt already. The last 2 seasons, he has supplanted Tyler Lockett as the target leader for this offense. And yes, of course, Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be there now. He is going to command targets. I still think, especially in 2023, DK Metcalf is going to be the target leader for this team. And if you look at what DK did last year, if you would have given him his average, his career average for touchdowns on the year, that would have made him wide receiver 9. He's going currently in Dynasty startups as that wide receiver 14 to 16 range, and I think you can get much higher production for that. I'm thinking that's more likely his floor for the next 3 years. A couple trades I saw that I would definitely make for DK Metcalf is Brandon Ayuk, a 2024 second, a 2024 third, and a 2025 second. I would definitely make a move like that to go get a guy like DK because DK has that top 10 potential for the next couple years. Another trade that I saw that was pretty interesting, and this is a tiered down situation. So if you've got Jalen Waddle, I saw a trade where someone gave Jalen Waddle up for DK Metcalf and George Pickens. Now, roster construction plays a part here, but I don't think DK Metcalf and Jalen Waddle are that far apart. And actually, in 2023, I've got DK Metcalf slightly ahead of Jalen Waddle. So if you can get a George Pickens on top, especially with some of the hate that he has received lately, I think that's a really, really solid play because you're getting probably a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside in George Pickens. And obviously, he's insanely young. And if he is to take that next step, that is a home run type of trade. I'm making those trades every single time I can. So go ahead and get DK Metcalf now before he enters that alpha window and his value just skyrockets. The next move I'm making is buy Keenan Allen if you are a contender. The reality is with Keenan Allen is, yes, he's 31. He's definitely up there in age. Last season, he dealt with injury, which was a concern early in his career, but he kind of knocked that off. He shook that concern away, and last year he dealt with hamstring injury. As we get closer and closer to the season, if you're a contender, go ahead and look for what you can get for Keenan Allen. Drop questions below. I'm happy to answer those, but Keenan Allen did not lose a step. He just dealt with the soft tissue injury and the hamstring injury. He still averaged over 6 targets a game. He averaged over 75 yards a game. Now this team brings in Quentin Johnston with Mike Williams, who's also banged up. So I think Keenan Allen is primed for another premier season at the wide receiver position, and there's plenty of options that you can do based on roster construction that gets Keenan Allen to your team if you're a contender that can help you win right now. The final move to make is stop fading Jackson Smith-Njigba because of target competition. Now, in reality, in Dynasty leagues, you're not really fading him a ton, but I've seen him in that wide receiver 18 to 20 range for Dynasty. That just seems kind of insane to me. He's my Dynasty wide receiver 12. The reality is this is probably the weakest competition, the weakest wide receiver room he's ever played in. Sure, I just said that DK Metcalf is entering his alpha window, and I believe that. He's not competing with DK Metcalf for the role in the offense. He's competing with Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett is a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be there for the next probably 2 years, maybe 1 year. But the reality is with Jackson Smith-Njigba is that you can probably get him because people are so worried about target competition. If you're a contender, I'm still buying Jackson Smith-Njigba right now. In a league I'm in, I actually just saw Jackson Smith-Njigba and Rashad White go for Najee Harris and DJ Moore. It's a really interesting trade. Najee Harris, I think this year is probably a nice asset, but dynasty-wise, I'm not really excited about holding on to Najee Harris. And DJ Moore is one of those guys who's got tons of hype. He's got the new quarterback, he's got Justin Fields, but his likelihood of being a top 15 wide receiver just isn't there. And I think Jackson Smith-Njigba could flirt with getting into the teens in 2023, and he's a top 12, like I said, dynasty wide receiver for me. So I am making that deal. The reality is Jackson Smith-Njigba's value is only going to increase. It's only going to skyrocket. We're already seeing the OTA camp hype videos come out about this guy, but he is a playmaker on the inside, on the outside. There's nothing that Jackson Smith-Njigba can't do, and he is probably going to see a lot more targets than people are expecting. I've got him over 800 yards in his rookie season. Even if I've got him slightly behind Jordan Addison as a rookie, he is going to surpass him as early as 2024. And I think JSN could be an immediate impact player for your fantasy teams, even if he's got target competition. Because again, he's used to competing with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's going to be just fine in a wide receiver room with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Don't forget to check out my other videos on the channel for 4 for 4. And be kind, do good. We'll see you next time. Peace.